Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into a topic that I think is going to hit pretty close to home for a lot of us. We're going to be talking about the rise of obesity in India. I know that might sound like a bit of a heavy topic, but we're going to keep it engaging and dare I say, enlightening. We really want to try to understand just how big of a problem this is and, why it should matter to all of us and, what we can actually do about it.
Absolutely. And I think what we're looking at is a potential public health crisis. It's something we really need to pay attention to.
Okay, so let's just jump right into it. So projections are saying that India could have the second highest number of overweight and obese people globally by 2050.
Yes. And to put that into perspective, we're looking at over 440 million people who will be dealing with weight-related challenges in just a couple of decades. I mean, to put that into perspective, that's more than the entire population of the U.S. right now.
Wow, that is a huge number. But it's not just about the statistics, right? We're talking about real people and real lives being impacted by this. And I think it's really important to kind of shift the conversation beyond just, thinking of weight as a cosmetic concern.
For sure, obesity is linked to so many different chronic diseases, things like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and some types of cancer,
Yeah.
and the list just goes on and on and on. It's not just about individual health either. This is going to put a huge strain on our healthcare system, and I think it's going to lead to a lower life expectancy.
Right. It's going to impact quality of life for so many people. It's like this ripple effect that impacts, so many different parts of our society. And what's even more concerning is that it's not just adults who are being affected by this. We're seeing a really worrying trend of younger generations also being impacted.
Yeah, if you look at the projections for children and young adults in India who will be overweight by 2050, it's really troubling. We need to address this problem now, or we're setting up an entire generation for health problems that could really last a lifetime.
It's almost like a paradox because you think about India and you picture yoga and Ayurveda, all of this, ancient wisdom about health and well-being. But the reality on the ground seems to be telling a totally different story.
It does, and while those traditions are still around, there have been some really big shifts in lifestyle and food habits.
Right. And, some of these are happening globally, too. I mean, we're seeing more people living sedentary lifestyles.
Yeah.
Longer work hours, more time spent in front of screens, and just less physical activity in general.
Right.
And then you add to that the fact that ultra-processed foods are so readily available everywhere you go.
Exactly. It's not even just availability, it's also the accessibility of these foods. They're often way cheaper than fresh, healthy options, which makes it really difficult for lower income communities to, eat healthy.
And then, of course, there's stress eating, too. I mean, life in India can be incredibly demanding, especially if you live in an urban area. And that often leads people to, pick up unhealthy coping mechanisms like stress eating.
Yeah, you're right. And this is where I think it's so important to challenge this idea that BMI is the only indicator of obesity.
Okay, this is interesting to me. I've always wondered about, the limits of BMI.
Yeah.
It just seems too simple. Just one measure for something as complex as body composition.
Right. The Lancet Commission has come up with these concepts of clinical obesity and preclinical obesity, which I think are much better measures. It's kind of like thinking about an iceberg. Clinical obesity is like the tip of the iceberg. It's where you see the symptoms. But preclinical obesity is like that huge mass underneath the surface, silently doing damage to your organs.
So it's like someone could look relatively fit based on their BMI, but on the inside they could have like fatty liver buildup or other issues that are increasing their risk for heart disease or other problems.
Exactly. And this preclinical obesity stage is crucial to catch because this is where, if you make lifestyle changes, you can actually reverse some of that damage.
Okay, that is a good point. So it's really about looking beyond just what's on the surface, right? It's about understanding what's going on beneath. So it's not all doom and gloom. There's still hope.
Of course there is. It's not a death sentence. It's a wake-up call. And even though these numbers are really alarming, there is growing awareness about this issue, which is the first step towards making a change.
Right, awareness is definitely key. But where do we even go from there? What can we actually do to make a difference?
I think it really starts with each person taking responsibility for their health. Obviously, government policies and public health initiatives are important. But ultimately, the power to change things lies with each of us as individuals.
I agree, but it sometimes feels like such a huge, overwhelming problem. Where do we even begin to tackle something this big?
You're right, it can be daunting. But even making small changes can have a big impact. Imagine if each of us just committed to making one healthier choice each day. If millions of people across the country are all making healthier decisions, it's going to add up.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. It kind of shifts the focus away from this massive problem that seems insurmountable to, something that we can actually control.
Right. It's about taking back control. And it's not about being perfect or depriving yourself. It's just about, making gradual changes that you can stick with over time.
So what are some of those small changes that can make a big difference? We talked about ultra-processed foods earlier. I know I struggle with them. They're just so convenient and honestly kind of addictive.
You're not alone. You know they're designed to be that way.
Hmm.
A lot of those packaged snacks that are marketed as healthy are actually loaded with sugar and unhealthy fats and a bunch of additives that, mess with your metabolism and make you gain weight.
It's like they're trying to trick you. So how do we avoid those traps?
I think the first step is just being aware. Start reading labels and pay attention to portion sizes. Just
Mhm.
try to be more conscious of what you're actually putting into your body.
So it's not about cutting out processed foods completely, but just making, smarter choices, like maybe cooking at home a few nights a week instead of ordering takeout, or choosing a handful of nuts as a snack instead of chips.
Those are great examples, yeah. Just small tweaks to your daily habits can have a big impact over time.
Okay, what about exercise? We talked about how more people are living these sedentary lifestyles. So how do we break out of that cycle? Especially when everyone's so busy these days. Like I know I struggle with finding the time and motivation to work out regularly.
I think it starts with shifting your mindset. We tend to think of exercise as this big, time-consuming activity, but it really doesn't have to be. It can be as simple as taking the stairs instead of the elevator, going for a quick walk during your lunch break, or even just doing some stretches while you're watching TV.
Right, it's about finding those little pockets of time and making them count.
Exactly. And it shouldn't feel like a chore. Find something you actually like to do. Maybe it's dancing, swimming, playing a sport with some friends, or even just gardening. The important thing is to make movement a regular part of your life, not just something you check off a list.
It's like remembering how much fun it was to move around when we were kids, without overthinking it.
Exactly. And I think it's important to talk about the mental and emotional side of things, too. As we mentioned before, stress can be a big trigger for unhealthy eating habits.
So it sounds like finding healthy ways to manage stress is a crucial part of this as well.
Absolutely. And there are lots of different options. Yoga and meditation are great for calming your mind and reducing stress. Spending time in nature is also incredibly beneficial for both your mental and physical health. Even just simple things like listening to music journaling or spending time with people you care about can help you recharge.
It's like having a whole toolkit full of healthy coping strategies that you can use whenever you start to feel overwhelmed.
Exactly. And remember, you don't have to go through this alone. There are resources available to help you. Don't be afraid to reach out to a healthcare professional or a registered dietitian if you're having trouble managing your weight or your health.
That's a good point. There's no shame in asking for help. And we should also mention the importance of community. Surround yourself with people who are supportive of your health goals. Maybe join a fitness group or find a friend to go on walks with. Sharing your journey with friends and family can make a big difference.
It's all about creating a positive environment that helps you make healthy choices.
And ultimately, it's about more than just the number on the scale. It's about living a longer, healthier, and more fulfilling life. And it's about feeling good about yourself and having the energy to do all the things you love.
It's about taking care of yourself so you can show up for the people you care about.
All right, so we're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into obesity in India.
We've talked about a lot of different things, like how big of a problem it is and all the different factors that play a role. But I think the most important thing we need to talk about is what we can actually do to, make a difference.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's one thing to understand the problem, but it's taking action that really matters.
So let's talk about some real steps that our listeners can take starting today to really prioritize their health and well-being.
Well, as we talked about earlier, it really comes down to making those small changes to your daily habits. One of the easiest places to start is with what you're eating. Like, take a look at your plate. Are you filling it up with mostly whole, unprocessed foods? Things like fruits and vegetables, lean proteins, and whole grains. Or are you eating mostly processed foods and sugary drinks?
I try to eat healthy, but it's hard. I mean, those processed foods are always so tempting. I get it, It's definitely a struggle. But the point is not to be perfect. It's just to, gradually make those changes over time.
Right.
Instead of trying to change everything at once, just try focusing on, one healthy swap at a time. Like maybe this week you could try replacing sugary drinks with water. You'd be surprised at how much of a difference that one small change can make.
Yeah, that's a good idea. It doesn't feel so overwhelming that way. That reminds me of something else we talked about earlier, which is cooking at home.
Absolutely. When you cook your own meals, you can control the ingredients and the portion sizes, and it can actually be a really fun and creative activity.
I love that. It's about taking control of your kitchen and your health. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy or complicated either. There are so many simple recipes out there that are really delicious and nutritious.
For sure. Just have fun with it.
Yeah.
Maybe try a new vegetarian recipe once a week or get your family involved in the meal prepping.
Okay, so we've talked about eating healthier and cooking more. Now, what about exercise? We all know it's good for us, but how do we actually make it a regular part of our lives?
Yeah.
Especially with all the demands of work and family.
Well, it really comes down to finding what works best for you and your lifestyle. And,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be about joining a gym or training for a marathon. You can start with small changes and then gradually, increase how active you are. Like maybe this week you try taking the stairs instead of the elevator or walking or biking to work a few times.
Yeah, those are all really good ideas. And I think it's important to remember that even just moving around more throughout the day can make a big difference.
Right. You want to break out of that cycle of being sedentary. You could even do something like get up and stretch every hour if you have a desk job or take a walk after dinner. Even those small things can help.
And it's also important to find activities that you actually enjoy. If you hate running, then don't force yourself to do it. Find something that makes you happy and gets you moving. Maybe it's dancing or swimming or playing a sport or even just going for walks in nature.
Exactly. It shouldn't feel like a chore. You should feel good while you're doing it.
Speaking of feeling good, we should also talk about the importance of mental and emotional well-being. We mentioned stress before and how it can lead to unhealthy habits. So what are some healthy ways that people can manage stress?
There are lots of great options out there. Meditation and yoga are great ways to, calm your mind and reduce stress. Spending time in nature is also great for your mental and physical health. And even just listening to music or journaling or spending time with people you care about can be really helpful.
So it's really about building a whole set of, healthy coping mechanisms that you can use whenever you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed.
Exactly. And you don't have to go through this alone either. If you're having a hard time with your weight or your health, don't be afraid to reach out for help. There are people who can help you. You could talk to a healthcare professional or a registered dietitian. They can, give you personalized advice and support.
That's such a good point. It's okay to ask for help. And, we should also mention the power of community. Like, try to surround yourself with people who are going to, support you in your health goals. You could join a fitness group or find a friend to go on walks with. Just, sharing your journey with other people can really help.
Right. It's about creating a positive environment that helps you stay on track.
And I think it's important to remember that this is about so much more than just, the number you see on the scale. It's about living a longer, healthier, and happier life. It's about feeling confident and having the energy to, do all the things you love.
It's about being the best version of yourself so that you can show up for the people in your life.
Well said. I really hope that, this deep dive has helped our listeners and given them, the information and motivation to make a positive change.
Me too. And remember, every little step you take, every healthy choice you make is a step in the right direction.
To our listeners, we challenge you to think about one small change you can make today to, start prioritizing your health. You don't have to do everything at once. Just start small and be consistent and, celebrate the progress you make along the way. And until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay well.